Hey guys, I'm so excited to have Thomas Gelmi on today. And I think the Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, what we all need the most is someone who can bring out the best in us. And this quote definitely describes the impact of Thomas's work with his clients. And what we're going to talk about today is the importance of personal development as a basis for successful leadership, teamwork, and customer relations. Thomas, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Doug.
Yes, there's so many things that we can talk about. We did the pre-call, and I think we could have talked all day during that. But what I want to start off with is giving the listeners a little bit of background on how you got involved in coaching and in executive leadership.
Okay, yeah, I'd be happy to do so. You know, the initial impulse for me to get into coaching was being coached. As simple as that. So I was doing something completely different, and a friend of mine was enrolled in a coaching training program, and they had to bring someone in as a client, for a training session, for an exercise, and so I volunteered. I got there, and I was at weight point in my life where I didn't really know where to go. Should I go left? Should I go right? And I brought this as a topic to the coaching session, and I came out with clarity after 60 minutes. So, and I wasn't told what to do. So
yeah,
that was the kickoff. Now that made me look into coaching more deeply. I wanted to know, what is that?
Yeah, sure.
And here I am. Doing this for a living with a lot of joy and passion.
Excellent. So you start off as a guinea pig, getting tested on,
and that was like, that also started a tradition of only applying to people what I have experienced myself.
Yes, and that was one of the things I caught when you and I were talking. Is often we see in the coaching world, you've been doing this a long time too. There's two camps that I look at. It's people who market themselves as coaches yet don't eat their own cooking, so to speak. And there's people like yourself who are not only doing coaching, but also doing what you preach, right? You're getting coaching from other people. You're continuing to develop yourself and increase your own learning and development.
Yeah, I think that's an absolute necessity. It all has to do with trust. It's people's business. It's all about trust. And I mean, you quickly run into credibility issues if you don't walk the talk. And if you're coming across as someone who's just repeating what's in the books, or it's not coming really from the inside, it's not really your essence talking, people pick up. People have sensitive antennae, then they will notice.
Yes, yeah, you can smell a fraud a mile away, right? Some people can fake it for a little bit, but eventually the truth comes out. Yeah. And you take a different approach than I would say a lot of executive coaches will take, because you really believe that it starts with the person. It starts with the inside first. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'm absolutely convinced that wherever people want to or have to achieve something together, work together, and that's the case, of course, in leadership. It's the case in teamwork, collaboration, and it's the case in customer interaction, as in sales, after sales, internal, external customers. So there's many areas where this is important. People want to achieve something together. The key to success in these areas is the ability to connect with others, truly connect, really connect, build and maintain authentic and genuine relationships. What I call interpersonal competence. Mm-hmm. And the basis for that needs to be a good relationship with yourself, personal competence. Because how can you be an inspiring leader? How can you be a visionary leader? How can you radiate confidence in times of crisis, as right now, if you're not in a good connection with yourself, in good balance with yourself, if you're all stressed out, right? So it all really starts with the individual. Good leadership is good self-leadership.
Love it. I couldn't agree more. And as a lot of our audience are also coaches coming in through this, Did you always start off with that philosophy, or is that a philosophy that's evolved over time for you?
It has evolved over time. Yes. So what I did initially was what most people new to the business, new to the coaching business do. I positioned myself with the services I was offering. So here I am, I'm a coach. I can offer one-on-one coaching. I can offer team coaching. And usually, the more I offer, the better, because then there's probably something in there for anyone. Yeah. So my market is larger, it's bigger, which of course is not true.
Yeah.
It's all about narrowing in and zooming in on your specific profile and your niche, because you want to be sharp in your position, right? And yeah, it was a shift over time, also with some great coaches supporting me in that process, that led me to positioning myself not through the services, but through the topics that I work on with my clients. And that's basically the two main areas: personal competence development and developing interpersonal competence.
Two of the most important areas, I would say.
Yeah, I would say, and it's vast. It sounds like, okay, two topics, but they are vast. There's so many subtopics in there. Yeah,
absolutely. So let's talk about today. Obviously, as we're recording this, in the States, COVID's still a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal everywhere. Europe, where you're at, is opening up right now. How does a coach like yourself, how are you pivoting and being able to service people in these times where it's uncertain? Coaches are needed more than ever. At the same time, we don't have that personal interaction like we did even 6 months ago.
Yeah, absolutely true. So I was immediately starting to offer free support for anyone who might need it when we had the lockdown, just because I thought it's not the moment to sell something now, right? This is the moment for mutual support. Mm-hmm. This is the moment for being human and offering support to whoever may need it. And yes, of course, there is still at least as much need for coaching out there at the moment, if not more. I see rather increasing potential and increasing demand, and at the same time, as you mentioned, there's less possibility to meet in person, mm-hmm. which leads to the fact that most of my work currently is virtual, is online, much more than before. I've already started working online many years ago, but most of my work was still face-to-face. And there's a big shift now happening, which from a Central European standpoint brings us closer to where you in the US already are or have been for many years, because coaching over the phone or online has been much more accepted and popular in the US or whole North America as opposed to Europe.
Yeah.
And we're now like catching up in this regard because we have to.
Trends always change, of course, but the basics of I find don't, right? You're delivering it just in a different medium. You and I are right now, obviously, talking. I'm on the western part of the United States. You're in Europe, so there's a big difference. Yet we're still able to connect, and mm-hmm. I think a lot of coaches and professionals will use that barrier as a limiting belief that'll stop them from moving forward.
Oh yes. Of course, it's different, but it doesn't mean it's worse or is not as good as.
Yeah.
It's really all a matter of how you see things. I think the key is really your own ability, and it brings us to the self again, your own ability to be mindfully present, to be fully present, as in right now when I'm talking to you, I'm looking at you and I'm focused and I'm there and only here and there, here and now, right? And I'm not somewhere else in my mind. That, I think, is the bigger distraction than an electronic set of tools that is between you and me now. And I think also the more comfortable we get with the technology and with working like that, the less it is something that absorbs our attention. The more comfortable you get, the more at ease you are, the more it's just normal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you're able to connect on such a deeper way with people from all over the place, and you obviously you could be coaching me in the U.S., then you could turn around and coach somebody in South America, Europe. It really allows the end participant to choose the best professional for them.
Right, and this is something that I see as a huge emerging opportunity to really scale up the activities from local to global. Mm-hmm. Because, I've been working a lot of international work over the last 10 years, at least. I've been traveling to Southeast Asia, to Australia for leadership and sales development programs, to the US and Canada, and the other end of the world. I've even done some work in Africa. But towards a real, boost into international business or globalizing your business, there was always this hurdle of travel expenses and travel time, which is now off the table.
Yeah.
It's just not a topic anymore. I just sent out a quote to Australia last week for a virtual leadership development program. So here we go.
Nice.
I think times have never been better to really work globally for us as coaches or consultants. Yeah.
I love that perspective. And I think that shows a lot about your character personally as a coach and an individual, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are saying, coaching's saturated. Maybe I don't have the experience. I can't travel, so I can't do corporate consulting or coaching. And here you are flipping that on its head, saying, no, it's never been better. This is your time to differentiate yourself. This is your time to actually deliver to the people that need it the most.
Yes, and that's maybe also, part of my nature. I have been born an optimist, and I never changed that habit. There's good in anything, in everything, and my principle is really to not go against what life is offering. You cannot choose the hands you're given, right? The hands you're dealt. How do you say that when you play cards, right?
Yeah.
But you can choose how to respond to it, and you can either resist the changes, say, this shouldn't be happening, right? And be in resistance and anger or frustration or whatever, or you understand what you cannot change or control in the situation, and shift your focus of attention to what you can change and influence, and just go with it and see what you can do with it. It's the only way to do it.
I 100% agree. There's always two options, right? At least there's always usually three to look at any situation, and you get to make a decision based on that. One option, that's not an option. Two is a dilemma. Three, now you have the opportunity, they say, to make a decision through that. As you're forecasting or future casting yourself and your business, how do you see things evolving as a coach and as a leader that you are over the next 6 months to a year? It's hard to put things in 5-year perspective these days, but 6 months to a year, where do you see things going?
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, but honestly, that's something we can only estimate or guess or assume, because based on what I said earlier, that there's probably never been a better time to expand the business on a global level. We have probably also never been living in more uncertain times than now. Like, I'm not sure if you are familiar with the term VUCA, the acronym VUCA, VUCA. It stands for the 5 biggest challenges that companies and leaders in organizations have been facing over the last decade, I would say. V for volatility, so speed of change, instability, if that's a word. U for uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
in almost all areas of life, increasing uncertainty, and with that comes unplanability. C for complexity, and A for ambiguity. VUCA. Look it up. There's vast information out there. And one of the answers to VUCA environments is being agile in your approach. So the whole agile movement is an answer to VUCA. And so if you ask me, where do I see myself in 5 years? I really have no ideas, but I'm very curious.
Yeah, I like it.
And you know, and my approach to dealing with this is really not to set clear goals and clear, maybe intentions, yes, but not clear goals as in SMART goals, you know, as it's taught in management schools. Because you can work with SMART goals, specific, measurable, etc., in a predictable environment, in a more or less stable or predictable environment. That makes sense. I'm here, here's the goal, and now how do I get there? But in an ever-changing VUCA environment, the only thing you can realistically do is always just the next step. It's like walking through dense fog, right? You go for a walk in fog. You can only just see your next step, and then you make your next step, and then you reassess the situation. Okay, where am I now? And what's the next step I'm going to take?
Yeah, I would almost say that you could take that same approach to any time period in life, right? And for anybody, because there's always uncertainty around the corner in any business or any individual's life, because you're dealing with other people. Relationships are always uncertain to a different degree, depending on the stories we tell ourselves.
Absolutely.
And you can really look at this. Now, when you're working with corporate clients, right? And I can imagine if it hasn't been pre-framed well, they're expecting kind of your typical, corporate speech, right? Coming in through here, we're going to set, our KPIs or whatever it may be for our goals. And we're going to break these down. We're going to have some kind of motivational aspect to it. And then he's going to leave and we're left by ourselves. How do you differentiate that and bring in the personal aspect to it? And what's the response you get?
Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, we almost always start in the corporate environment when it comes to coaching with a clear set of goals for the coaching. And they're often around KPIs, about behavioral change, very much, but always related to the business. Right? How can I become more decisive, more assertive, more effective as a leader, better communicator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there are usually always business motives and business objectives to start with. And then what usually happens is that within the first 2 or 3 sessions, depending on the person, we get very personal. Mm-hmm. And not necessarily because I steer the process in that direction, because I'm trying to manipulate or influence people to talk about personal stuff. No, just because they come up with personal things that are on their mind or that are just, that keep them awake at night, because things are much more interconnected than many think. So yes, we start off talking about the business. Yes, we start off talking about becoming a better leader. And yes, we end up talking about how's it going in the family at home. Yeah, how's it going with the wife and the kids and the dog, and and usually you improve in one area, you improve in the other area as well.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. I recently had a conversation with the CEO of a Fortune 100 company, and he was telling me, Doug, I can compartmentalize things very well. I can separate my work from my personal life. And as the conversation evolved, of course, the truth really started coming out, right? Having problems at home, the relationship in the marriage, was causing stress and anxiety at work, causing him to work longer. You know the story.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I had a wife of a client calling me, secretly calling me, asking me or telling me, whatever you did or whatever you're doing with my husband, I don't know what you're doing with him, but keep going. Don't stop. So, yeah. Or I have this beautiful example of a participant of a program I did in the US. It was a few years back, 2 parts, a few weeks in between. And it was about effective communication in leadership and in sales, etc. And in the second part, he approached me during the coffee break. And he said, "Hey, Thomas, look, this saved my marriage." And I was like, "Okay, what?" Usually it's the other way around with these things. Right? Yeah. And so he said, no, look, I set myself a reminder. So he set himself a reminder that popped up every morning saying, talk less, listen more. With the intention to improve in the business context, in his working environment. Interestingly enough, his wife was the first person to notice a difference. And it really changed the situation in the relationship. So these are the really nice stories then, That's a reason to get up in the morning.
It is. It's fantastic. I mean, you're able to not only change people's lives. I always say, as coaches, people let us play in their sandbox, so to speak, especially when it comes to their business. Yeah. We get to play with them. And for those listening to the audio version, you're pointing to your phone, talking about the alarms being set on the phone. And that's just a really good tool for people to set reminders. And it can be basic things like you said, talk less, listen more.
Yeah, exactly. I in my experience, this is one of the most important aspects of lasting behavioral change, to remind yourself of what you want to change on a daily basis. Because people come out of, workshops and trainings and seminars and coaching sessions with great insights, great learnings, and clear intentions. And then they, go to work again. And by 9:30 the next day, daily business has washed away the best intentions like a tsunami rolling over them. And then by the end of the month, they remember there was something they took away from the coaching. What was it? I don't remember. Right? So that's why the reminder, the anchor for the new intentions is so important. Could be anything. Could be a reminder on your phone or post it somewhere.
Yeah, well, you're forming new neural pathways, right? And you're reinforcing neural pathways. And our sponsor of the show is BioCybernaut, and what they do is train brainwaves, so it's very similar.
Yeah.
But with these reminders, you're able to do it and form these new habits, neural pathways. And in my experience, when you form it, the best way of getting rid of a bad habit is not to focus on the bad habit, but is just to create a new good habit. And you only have so much room for habits in your life.
Exactly. Because what you focus on will grow.
Yes.
What you resist persists, right? So that's why it's a bit similar, like what I said earlier. There's a situation, there's a crisis, there's a pandemic. Okay, now you focus on the problems it's causing, on the limitations that you're experiencing because of it. You could. Or are you accepting that there are limitations and that it has an impact on your life, and you just really accept it, which doesn't mean you resignate, but you just accept it because you can't change it anyway. And then you refocus your attention on what you can do.
Mm-hmm. Which is perfect formula, right? And as we're recording this, and obviously I'm involved with BioCybernaut, we have a waiting list there. Right. And it's maxed out at capacity with a waiting list. And then you could have the same level of business that's just doom and gloom and talking about recoiling their business, and again, to your point, you get what you focus on. And if you're focused on growth and opportunity, you're going to find it. But if you focus on the doom, the gloom, and here in the United States, we're going back almost into a lockdown situation, it seems, in some areas, then if that's your only focus, then you're going to recoil. And that's what you're going to attract.
Absolutely. And the challenge in all of this is that it's quite easy to understand. What we're talking about is quite easy to understand. The challenge is that as human beings, we have this, what psychology calls negative bias. Mm-hmm. That it's a phenomenon that in our perception, how we perceive the world, we have a strong tendency to focus much more on things we consider negative, or we perceive as negative, as things that are positive. And it's very old. It's a very old instinctive way of perception, because if you think back of our ancestors who went out hunting every day, they had to focus much more on potential threats than on the fact that there's a blue sky and the sun is shining. I'm like, who cares? So there's this, the radar is calibrated to potential threats. And that's why we have this challenge that anything, or the problems and the challenges we perceive and the limitations are like a magnet for our attention. The attention is automatically drawn there. So in order to live by what we just said, to focus on the positive, the opportunities, the possibilities, it takes a conscious effort. It takes a conscious decision, because it goes a bit against nature, our nature. So it takes really a conscious decision on a daily basis. Like, what am I going to focus on today? Or by the end of the day, what did I do well today? And you tap yourself on the shoulder, because I'm sure you can recall all the things that did not go well. But what you did well and what went well, what you can be grateful for, you may want to have to look at really consciously. There's a nice saying, I think it's an Asian proverb, I'm not sure, that says, one falling tree makes more noise than a whole growing forest.
I've never heard that before, but I like that.
That really nails it, right?
Yeah.
There's one thing that went wrong today. What are you thinking about when you're trying to fall asleep at night?
Yeah, it sticks with us. Well, one of the things you talked about, and you're talking about anchoring, right? When you're tapping yourself on the shoulder. For those that are listening to this that aren't familiar with anchoring, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, you place a so-called somatic anchor. So you connect an emotional state to a physical or sensory impulse. And we all know that. We have all experienced that. You walk through a mall, for example, and you walk past a perfume shop, and there's this scent in the air suddenly. And here comes the memory of this particular special person that this scent reminds you of, right? It's right there, and you feel the emotion. And then you go around the corner and there's a music store, and you hear this one song that brings up a whole collection of memories, right? These are anchors. These are anchors, involuntary or involuntary placed anchors, but you can also do that voluntarily. Right? So, for example, I have a client. We had a coaching process around executive presence, improving her executive presence, and she was able to get herself into the state, the emotional state, and the mindset where she really feels powerful and present, and she connected this emotional state to a little stone, a nice little stone that she liked very much. And so she keeps carrying this stone with her in her pocket. And whenever she feels insecure, or in preparation to an important presentation, for example, or an important meeting, she takes the stone in her hand. And the stone acts as an anchor to bring her or help her get into this state of more presence.
Love it.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Love it. I'm a big fan of physical anchors, kind of like you said, tapping yourself on the shoulder, because you don't know when you're going to have the stone or not. And, limiting any barriers to entry on there. One of the things that I also thought was really interesting, in talking about it, is you not only obviously speak English, but you speak 4 different languages. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, 5 if you consider Swiss German a language.
Sure. What are those languages?
So my mother tongue is German. My father tongue, so to speak, is Italian. When my parents met and fell in love and I was born, they were speaking English because otherwise they wouldn't have understood each other. So that's why I had the English in the background all the time. And then French is the fourth. And French I learned at school, the basics, and then I used it in my work and developed the French in my work. So these are the four languages. And Swiss German is really just a very strong German dialect.
Yeah. Very cool. As we look at this, I mean, the podcast title is The Successful Coach. And I think for listeners, this is just another element that you're able to bring to your repertoire when working with somebody, is connecting with them. And connecting with them in language is so important, as we know. Have you found that to be something that becomes useful?
Absolutely. I mean, any language is a door opener.
Mm-hmm.
And if you work in a corporation, in a corporate customer, and you can offer your services in different languages, with the international and intercultural diversity we have nowadays in the organizations, at least here in Europe, it's really a big plus. Yes.
Absolutely. What other things do you think makes, in your opinion, Thomas, what makes a successful coach versus somebody who's just dabbling?
What do you mean by gabbling? Never heard
dabbling. Sorry. Dabbling meaning just kind of trying out, testing the waters, maybe got a client here, doing it as on the side.
That's a good question. I think experience is a big element there. And being confident about who you are and what you can bring to the table as value for those you coach. And for me, being a great coach really is all about being of service and facilitating the development process and supporting the development process that is happening, unleashing the potential, or really referring to the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that you stated at the beginning, being the one who brings out the best in others. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have all the knowledge and know so many things that you can then tell them. No, the coaching is not about telling people what to do or who to be. It's about helping them really discover in the sense of uncover what's there already. Or as Sir John Whitmore said, who was a pioneer in the coaching industry, a big oak tree has already in its seed the whole potential.
Mm-hmm.
Everything it needs to become a big, strong oak tree. It just needs the ideal condition. There's nothing that needs to be added, right? So, and bringing out somebody's full potential and helping someone to blossom in their environment is rarely ever about adding something on top, right? Many have added enough already.
Well, I want to tell everybody that's listening to this, which I love, many things that I love about you, why you and I connected so well, is your passion just increased dramatically when you're talking about releasing the potential of somebody else. I mean, your physiology changed, your energy changed. And to me, that's one thing that makes a successful coach is loving what you do, right?
Yeah.
Really loving, and love's a strong word, but loving that, the ability to bring out that the best in other people. And it's clear that you do.
Yeah. And that's not true only for being a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true for everybody.
Yeah.
Love what you do and do what you love. Either one is okay. Either one is okay. Not everybody. I think everybody should have the privilege to do what they love, but realistically speaking, not everybody has the opportunity. Many have to find a job and do any job they can get, and in addition to that, a second and a third one. Especially in the US, as far as I have experienced and heard and seen, And then you have not much of a choice, right? But you still have the option of deciding to love what you do.
Yes.
Right. And you can make that decision for anything you do. And it changes the whole experience.
Back to the eternal optimist, which I really liked as well, is, find the greatness in what it is. Find out what you enjoy.
And find the greatness in yourself.
Mm.
Yeah, really, really. Because most people, the inner critic, the voice in the head that kicks you every time something goes wrong. See, you did it again, right? This inner critic is so loud for many, and it's such a shame, because it's the same negative bias that I mentioned earlier that does not only affect the perception of the external world, but also self-perception. And many people have no idea how great they are, how great they really are,
So someone listening to this right now who is going, okay, you're talking about me. I'm negative around myself, my inner critic, as we all are. But what's one thing that they could do now to help them move forward to the next level?
Okay, sit down, take a piece of paper, and start thinking about and writing down everything you have achieved in your life so far. Because you've made it to the point where you are today. You made it up to that point. It's a success already, whatever that looks like. You're there. You're still there. And you made it to the point where you were. So how does that look like? What were your achievements so far? And not only the big, shiny, success-like situations, but also, how did I get through a crisis? How did I come out the other end? How did I manage to do that? Well done. And how did I deal with misfortune, and problems and difficulties? And did I stay on the ground, or did I get back up, dust myself off and continue? Things like that. And it's all a matter of becoming more aware of who you really are, and not just the biased self-perception, really a more realistic self-concept and self-perception, self-awareness. So that's one thing initially to start it off. And then I would recommend anyone to make it a habit of sitting down for 5 to 10 minutes every day, initially, in the evening, and just write down the questions I mentioned already. What did I do well today? What am I happy about? And not well, you can also ask the second question, what went well today? But if you ask yourself what went well today, the answer is often external, right? Well, this happened. The boss was kind today, exceptionally, and my wife was nice and everything. But if you ask, what did I do well? What did I manage to do well? What was my contribution today? That's internal. That's really about me. Mm. And, many shy away from that or find it difficult because there's like a resistance there that wants to prevent you from becoming arrogant or too much of an inflated ego. But realistically speaking, there's not much danger in that. Yeah. Right? You worst case is you'll end up somewhere in the middle, in a more balanced self-perception. And it may take an effort in the beginning. It may be challenging or even difficult in the beginning because we're just not used to it. Nobody shows us how this works. But over time, and you mentioned that earlier, over time, your brain will build new neuronal connections. Or in other words, you're building the habit of seeing things like that. And then at some point, you really notice that you are seeing the good in the situations. You're seeing the good in yourself, just habitually. And there you have it integrated.
Absolutely beautiful. And what I think people will find also, I'm sure you see this, is the people around them, like the wife that called you, they see it before you even see it. All of a sudden, you're a little nicer, you're a little happier.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Yes.
Well, Thomas, you've been so gracious with your time and getting to share everything with everybody. For those that would like to learn more about you or reach out with further questions, what's the best way for them to do that?
Visit my website. There's more information about myself. Visit my LinkedIn profile. Connect with me on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Drop me a line, and we can have a meeting, a Zoom meeting, and chat and have a coffee together.
Virtual coffee. I always love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, all those links will be on the show notes, guys. Please connect with Thomas. He's absolutely amazing. The real deal. Which I love seeing your passion, my friend. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Doug. Very much appreciated. All the best to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us at the Successful Coach Podcast. Please hit like and subscribe so we can bring you more great interviews like these. Until next time, have an amazing day.